How's it going, Coach? Thanks for checking in to hear about winning in the fourth quarter with mental toughness and perseverance. So first off, I want to say thank you. Nowadays, the military gets a lot of credibility, get a lot of thanks, but I couldn't do any of the things that I do with the troops that we need to go forward, let alone I wouldn't be who I was without a coach like you that invested in my life. So it starts with the game, but you give so much more than that. You pour your lives into the students, using the game to teach them how to fight through tough things, how to fight through challenges so that they can take that into the world. So thank you for standing in the gap and producing the men and women that we need to lead and defend our country. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Heath Kerns. I'm a Special Tactics Officer, and I'm a commander in the United States Air Force Special Operations. To give you a little bit of credibility, a little background of where I'm coming from, in my high school days, back in the glory days, I was a three-sport varsity athlete. I then went on to play Division I football and lacrosse, where I got multiple concussions, and they told me, hey, you need to stop getting hit in the head or you won't be able to serve your country. So I said, all right, I didn't come here just to do that. And so then that was the end of my athletic career, and then that began my calling in Air Force Special Operations. So one of the things that we pride ourselves on in Air Force Special Operations is our quiet professionalism. And ultimately what that means is you probably haven't heard specifically of us. You've definitely seen the things that we've done, but you didn't know it was us. To give you a quick example, some of the mission sets that we cover are global access, and that's our ability to get anywhere in the world to bring American military power. That could be in a disaster relief. When an earthquake strikes, we can get personnel there on the ground to start recovering the personnel and bringing them to safety and delivering aid. Or it could also be in the beginning of a war. We would step things first off and take over that enemy airfield and then start controlling air traffic. Additionally, do precision strike. So that's the ability to get American military power anywhere in the world, be it kicking down a door with our brothers from other special forces, or delivering 2,000-pound bombs to take out enemy-controlled compounds. And then lastly, we do the recovery mission. So that's our ability to get anywhere in the world and recover American citizens or our friends, be it in disaster, in Thailand cave rescues, or Haiti earthquake, or typhoons. Our people are the first on the ground to take care of that, or it could be a downed pilot. We'd be able to fight our way in and recover and bring our brothers home. So I wanted to share a bit of my 15 years of combat experience and try to give you opportunities, give you some tools to relate some of these combat experiences to helping your young warriors train in mental toughness and learn that perseverance they need to not only succeed in life, but to succeed on the field as well. And hopefully to establish a little more credibility of what I'm going to talk about. I put together a little bit of what I call like a highlight reel. So that's 15 years of combat experience, all condensed in just a couple paragraphs that tell you a little bit of what I've been through. So I've been taught how to resist torture by 2 different governments. I've been beaten, gassed, broken through ice, endured many waterboardings and near drowning. I've starved and lost 27 pounds in the Brazilian Amazon, where I was sleep, water, and food deprived. I've lost my mind a little bit. I've been drugged, chained to a tree, caged, blindfolded, and dragged in a chain gang. I've broken rocks. I've swam for 6 hours in the Amazon River, pulling 500 pounds of gear on a raft I made with 8 of my friends. And I've hunted alligator barefoot with a stick because I was delirious and starving. I've deployed all over the Middle East, South and Central America, and the Pacific. I've jumped out of planes at 18,000 feet. I swam 10,000 meters in the ocean, harnessed with 12 dive buddies. I've infilled underwater via 6-hour Draeger rebreather dives, and I've been to the bottom of the ocean in the dead of night. I've seen phosphorescent creatures illuminate the darkest depths and made me think that I was crazy or dead. In combat, I've been shot at. I've heard the bullets rippling past me. I felt the heat of rockets exploding behind me, and I've watched Humvees crumpled into fire and ash in front of me. And I came home without a scratch. Yet I've carried my flag-draped brothers home to their grieving widows. My choices have sent men, great men, to their fate in Valhalla, and I've killed bad guys with artillery strikes and dropped copious amounts of 1,000-pound bombs. I've been in humanitarian missions, delivering thousands of tons of aid and rescuing and evacuating thousands of earthquake and typhoon victims, all the way from Haiti to the Philippines. And I've seen beautiful sunsets all across the globe that have dropped me to my knees to praise the magnificent creator of the universe. And I've been in many romantic places with a bunch of dudes. I love my wife through disease, through chronic pain, through ER hell and 15 life-slicing surgeries, soon to be 16. We made my son and wrestled him out of a NICU and code blues and more disease and quacking prognosis, telling us what he can't be, and I've been loved by them perfectly. Through no merit or deserving of my own, I've been blessed to love an amazing family and to lead outstanding professionals to do incredible things and thwart appalling evil. So hopefully my laundry list gives a little bit of credibility to start speaking, to communicate how you can take some of those combat experiences and relay that to training up your warriors. So first off, to be mentally tough, to preserve any trials, you must train in adversity. One of my favorite quotes is from Dr. Martin Luther King. It says, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in times of challenge and controversy." Where do you stand? Where does your team stand? Where do the players stand in those moments of challenge? It's not enough to be strong in the beginning, before it plays. Not enough just to be in practice, but really when all the adversity is against them, when they're exhausted, when everything's against them, when they're down and there's not enough time left on the scoreboard, are they going to keep fighting? Are they going to keep pushing through? And so the thing about combat is the enemy never participates. Things never go as planned. They always get a vote, and usually it messes things up quite a bit. Just like your scouting reports, you can think you know what's going to happen, and then that first whistle blows, and then everything changes. So sometimes we say that the play really is just the first step, the place where everything goes crazy after that point. So the true testing in life and in combat is when things are against you, when the adversity strikes, when you're exhausted, when you're tired, when those challenges set in. There's a good book that has shaped a lot of how military trains. It's called On Combat by Dave Grossman. And one of the things that he talks about is the fact that there's kind of a myth that we think in the worst situation the adrenaline will rise and we'll rise up to the occasion and we'll overcome everything. Kind of like the mom will lift a car to save her baby, and those things happen. But for the most part, when we're stressed out and when we're challenged, our body starts defending itself, starts protecting itself, even down to the internal organs. They start pulling in blood from the fingers. You start losing dexterity. You start losing your focus. You can even you can get tunnel vision as the eyes don't function as efficiently as in normal circumstances. And so the challenge in the military training is that we have to have our professionals achieve brilliantly in the worst case scenario. When everything goes wrong, can they endure that stress? And so one of the ways that we do that is we focus in on stress inoculation. So there are many different tools. Some of them I'm not sure you'll be able to use at the high school level, but they all teach similar principles of how you focus on your mission, focus on what needs to happen when chaos takes place all around you. And ultimately, that's the one common theme that makes people in special operations succeed, is their ability to have that calm in the storm around them. And so much of the training is just developed to get them to be able to be calm when everything goes bad around them. So one of the examples, just to give you some understanding of how this takes place on the battlefield. So when I deployed to Afghanistan and Iraq, I was a joint terminal attack controller. That meant that I was responsible for linking in all the power of the United States Air Force and any other air assets that we had, and linking that in with the special operations maneuvers on the ground. So when we went into combat and when the enemy started attacking, I would get on the radio and I would start controlling air support. So that would be intelligence aircraft, fighters, bombers, helicopters, artillery, controlling all of that at the same time. So a joint terminal attack controller will have in one ear of his, he has headphones on, and one radio he has all the aircraft that he's controlling. He's getting constant information. He's tasking out all the multiple assets. He's sending them out all across the objective area, looking for the enemy, making sure that the friendlies are safe, looking at the target area, making sure scouting for if there's any explosives along the road. And he's getting all that information and relaying that, spreading that out across his team. And then in the other ear, he has all of his teammates. So that could be, depending on the size of his teams, it could be 12 to 30 other Americans that are working with other partner forces that could be hundreds of people. So the chaos and confusion that goes on just in his own headset, with all the voices, all the noises, all the information, let alone taking all that and then integrating into the battlefield, let alone the fact that you're getting shot at. The enemy is trying to take you out. So you're riding in the back of a vehicle, you're getting bounced around, or you're low crawling, or you're running, or you're moving, and keeping track of all that chaos. So obviously you can't just, that doesn't just a skill you can sit in a sterile environment. That's something you have to train for. And so like I said, what we use is stress inoculation, getting us comfortable in the most uncomfortable of situations. One of the things that we do, we use water as a lot. We call the water as the great equalizer. You can be a superstar on land, but then one little thing goes wrong in the water, and now you're coughing on water. So that takes the chaos of that environment to be calm, to take that external environment, all the sensors, all the things that are screaming in your body, to try and distract you from the one thing you need to focus on. So one of the tools we use in the water is called buddy breathing. And so that's where you take you and a partner and you lean forehead to forehead, you grasp arms, and then you hold onto a snorkel. And as you're forehead to forehead, you pass that snorkel back and forth, each person taking a breath, then passing it to his buddy. And that seems simple enough as you're sitting there floating, but then we start bringing in the chaos and confusion. And so we have instructors that will have very effective techniques to totally disrupt you, disorient you, get you, focused on anything other than what you have to do, which is just continue to stay calm and continue to breathe. So they'll splash, they'll roll, they'll tighten around your stomach, they'll pull you under, they'll hold you down, they'll take your breath. So after you exhale, then you can't breathe another breath. So now you've lost some air, and then you have to altruistically pass it right back to your buddy, let him give a breath, and then come back to you and hopefully get your breath and keep going. So some of the things, you'll see, there's lots of chaos in situations, but there's also actually some of the worst instructors are the ones that are the calmest. They're literally just kind of sit on you and smush you steadily together, so you become tighter and more uncomfortable. So your body starts kicking, and you start kicking your legs to try and keep you up so you can breathe, and so you start burning your own oxygen. And that's I think. In coaching, that can be some of the challenge sometimes. You think in order to really dial up the stress on your team that you have to be screaming and yelling or tearing folks down. Actually not the case at all. You can use actually the events themselves to be the stressor, so that they're not looking at the coach as the enemy, but you're getting them focused almost as a brother. You're taking them through the challenge. You're leading them through that challenge. You're saying, hey man, it's not me that's doing this. This is the challenge ahead of you. You have to run these next 10 wind sprints. And if you don't make the time, you have to do it again. It's your performance that is focused on whether or not you can achieve and overcome these things. So that calm, that coach that can still continue to mentor and coach and encourage while doing sometimes some seemingly sadistic things as you're putting them through that stress and that pain as they're learning to adapt and overcome. So some of the examples of just inducing that chaos is flipping up the practice on them. So they think they know what the schedule is going to be. Reverse it, change it every day. Keep them guessing on something new. You can take the 2-minute drills at any time where you're speeding up the tempo of their decisions. You're getting them tired in the very beginning, and you're then testing them on how they're actually going to perform. If you want to see how your team is going to perform in the fourth quarter, then don't ask that question when they're fresh. Ask that question when they're smoked, when they're demotivated, when they've been crushed a bit at that second practice of the day. That's when you're really going to see which leaders are going to step up and start taking care of their brothers, and which guys are going to be selfish and only focused on their needs and what they need to get through it. Also, the communications, it is always a challenge. So messing that up with them, where you're either the hand signals that you're doing or voice communications, making a hand signal or making a hand signal from the backup quarterback. Anything to kind of take people out of their element and then see whether or not they can continue to focus on what's important. So crowd noise. Talking to one of my buddies, actually is a coach in some of the training for our elite troops as they go through the training. Actually is an NFL player who says that they would take the speakers and they would dial it up really loud, so they'd play crowd noise or they'd play just booming music to get the players off their focus and then really challenge them at that point. So additionally, to be mentally tough, to persevere through any trial, you have to fight through the pain. There's so much of the missions and challenges, like I said, are going to be in that intense adversity. They're going to be when the environment is not safe, when you're not comfortable, when you're exhausted, when you're tired. And part of that is to help induce some of that pain, some of those challenges, and allow them to work together as a team. So I look at it really, there's kind of two phases. There's breaking them down with a set level of challenges where you tell them, hey, there's going to be 10 wind sprints, and they can kind of calculate that. They can determine their performance based on what they think is the determined amount of pain and suffering that they have to go through. So you encourage them through that time. You test them, you challenge them, you give them motivators and tools along the way. You set goals, times that they'll get through it. And that's the one thing, to see how they perform. And that one's just to kick them, get them a little exhausted, a little tired. So that's one thing. But then you induce the second phase. The second phase is challenging them on an unknown amount of time frame. So similar type of challenges, but this one is based on performance. It's based on not just how they, you can challenge them how they do it. It pays to be a winner, where you'll see, will they sprint, will they push beyond, will they beat their teammate, and then you can, as they pass, then you get a winner's bracket. And if they fail, they lost, they're in the loser's bracket. The losers keep going. So they see that the more you put out, the more you fight to overcome that challenge, then the easier it'll be for them. And that's one of the good ways to start teaching them, hey man, you don't know your limits. You think you were done, you thought you've given everything you did, but then you flip up the incentive structure on them. Make them realize, hey, this isn't just gonna end because I feel like it or because the time's up. I have to fight my way through that. So you can challenge that individually, but then you can also challenge it as a team, where their performance is absolutely determined by how good their buddy is doing. So you can't just have that superstar that just breezes through it, because they can breeze through and then watch their buddy next to them fail, and then everyone starts and does it right again. So that can be 100-yard bale crawls. That can be sprints at certain time intervals, where you test them in the beginning of practice and you say, hey, 80%, and then you mark and you see what that last guy comes in at. Then after at the end of practice, then you say, okay, 80% was this time. Now make that time again, now after you're tired, or make that time now that you have pads on or helmet on. Ways that you can continue to challenge them so that they recognize that their performance, their singular performance, isn't enough, that they actually have to come out of themselves and recognize that their brothers are going through that same challenge as well. So to be mentally tough and to persevere, you have to fight through the pain. And you also got to recognize that pain, it can draw you into yourself. I call this everyone's just suffering through their own individual suckfest. You'll watch even just like the countenance of your team and to kind of wither under the weight and under the stress and the pressure as they're starting to just focus in on themselves and the fatigue, and they're starting to make excuses. Vince Lombardi, fatigue makes cowards of us all. Absolutely true. You see it, see it in combat, see it on the team, see it even just during workouts. So part of that is getting them to recognize that tunnel vision is coming in, and to get them to raise their eyes up. I gave the example of team drills where it's not just your performance of your buddy, where you start recognizing, you immediately, before you can focus in on how bad you hurt, you look at the guy next to you who's in worse shape, maybe cramping, maybe he's a big old lineman and can't be running as fast as that back, and just get them to understand all their team is fighting through similar challenges. But one of the greatest stories that I went through, it was during my training. It was during our hell week, when we had been awake for days, been just exhausted, and they had woken us up in the middle of the night with flashbangs. And so, the chaos of the event, and they tell us we have, just a few minutes to get in formation with our heavy rucksacks, so 50, 60-pound backpacks. And this one had the added bonus of we actually had gas masks on. So these old school gas masks are, covering your whole face, and they are, it's, in a North Carolina summer night, so you're sweating like crazy, and your mask is starting to fog over. So that tunnel vision, the figurative tunnel vision, is actually literally now you can barely see through the fog of your own perspiration. And so as we were going on this long ruck march, big long line, as a leader I was kind of walking alongside, it's supposed to be taking care of my guys, when really I was just in my own individual suckfest, hating life. And as I was walking, I start hearing this strange noise, and I was like, man, am I hallucinating? Is that an auditory hallucination? Like what in the world? Because it was so out of place. And so I started zoning in on it. I started walking back along the line, trying to discover this mysterious noise. And the noise I will do for you here is I can still remember it very vividly. It was. So what in the world is taking place that could possibly have that strange, weak little sound? And so I finally walk up and down the aisle, and I find it was one of my guys. He was whimpering to himself. He was totally oblivious to anything going on around, and he was making the most hilariously pathetic sound in the world. And I said, bro, listen to yourself. Do you have any idea what noise you're making right now? And he kind of looked at me, and I couldn't help but burst out laughing. And then he started laughing, and we started recognizing, like, yeah, man, this sucks. No doubt about it. But we're in it together. It's okay. And that the humor of the moment was enough to just kind of shock us out of our own misery, to recognize, hey, man, there's a guy right next to me, and he actually needs me. And he needs me with some of that humor, some of that encouragement. And another phrase we use a lot in the military is, the beatings will continue until morale improves. And I actually never fully understood that as well. But basically, the external pressure, the stress, will continue to be applied until the team itself comes together and recognizing that they're not victims, that they actually have the ability to fight through that situation, and by their performance, by their teamwork, they can actually overcome that challenge. And so it's important to recognize, hey, there's a time where you beat them, you crush them, and there's a time where you show them that they can fight through that, they can overcome that event, and have that as a seminal moment where they can look back, they can remember that one moment, be it in spring training or in the summer or 2 days, where they have that one really strong kick in the gut, that they can look back when they fought through it together as the team and they overcame. Then that can be a new benchmark for them, where they say, hey man, it's not as bad as the time that we all came together and we all worked through that. And just giving them that benchmark that you say, hey man, everything that you go through, this next play, no matter how hard you fight, it's not going to be as bad as that one time that when we fought through all those things. And I like a quote by Winston Churchill. He says, I like a man who grins when he fights. And that's basically someone that not just doesn't just survive, but thrives through that. And so helping encourage your team as they're undergoing that challenge, to say, inspire that one guy that's got a big mouth, encourage him to throw some sass, throw some encouragement at his team, to say, yeah, this sucks, but I like the way it sucks. And you know what? I've been through worse, so bring it. To inspire that kind of challenge as they're fighting through those things. Absolutely very important to not just be unbroken, but unbreakable as they fight through those things. All right, so the last thing I say, I call it the fortifying the why. Fortifying the reason that they're doing what it is that they're doing. So one thing we recognize, I'm a part of the training and the recruiting to get the next generation of warriors, to get them ready to come, fall in behind me and to take my place. So one of the things that we recognize is a lot of the folks, when attrition rates were so high, up to 80-90% of the people that we brought in failed. we recognized that their whys were not powerful enough. It was enough to get them in the door. It was enough to be a small motivation. Maybe, hey, I want to leave this town. I want to ship off, or I want my mom to stop hassling me about a job, or hey, man, I think that sounds cool. Let's check it out. That those things are enough to get you through that first gate, but they're not going to be enough to make it through the hardest day. As our training, some of them exceed 2 to 3 years of grueling elite special operations training. That why has to be the most powerful thing in the world. And they won't always, they won't have that to start, but they'll build it over time. And that's a part of the training's job as they coach and mentor them, is they help them find that passion. They help them find that reason that will overcome all the challenges that they're going to face. So, some of that is helping them through that self-reflection. Some of that is, as a coach, helping provide that, helping them understand, hey man, this game is important, but it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is how you fight, how you grow, how you strengthen yourself, how you come together and know that your brothers are fighting alongside you, to build those life skills that will make it past. Because you see, if a team is only fighting to win, when they start losing, and they come to the point where they recognize, hey, they're way too far behind on the scoreboard, then if they were only playing to win, then they have nothing left to play for. Then they truly, during that fourth quarter, when they're down and out, then they can just give up. But if their motivation was stronger than that, it was bigger than that. It wasn't just about winning. It was about personal excellence. It was about their team. It was about the pride of their name, the pride of you as their coach, of the pride of their brothers. Then they'll recognize, hey, the scoreboard, that's one thing. It doesn't matter. But the next thing is, will I still fight? Will I still be a man or woman and continue against that obstacle and keep fighting through it? So, encouraging, sometimes that why can come from upperclassmen, from finding that motivated leader that says, hey, I started out, I was like you, but I built something deeper, I built something greater, helping them work through those greater whys so they can understand that they can be intentional about their life. They're not just, mindlessly going from one class to the next, but that they're actually setting goals because they've made choices. Understanding that one little choice at a time, helping them look where that path is going to eventually end up and say, hey man, do you want to be down there or do you want to be going this direction? So helping to fortify the why, to strengthen their ability and their resolve to endure in any circumstance. And so then the last thing I want to share is basically, you have never found your limit. The human body is an absolutely incredible machine, and whatever limit you think your body can do so much more. And that's the power of the human spirit. So I'll share 2 examples. One was my failure. There's a little bit of a curse in guys that go into Air Force Special Operations, is we're always looking for that next challenge. And so sometimes when I ran out of one challenge, I started getting itchy to find that next challenge. So I was doing a staff job, and I wanted something to still remind me if I was tough enough. So I started doing marathons, and then I did marathons for a little bit, and then I said, hey man, I hear there's something even worse than a marathon. It's called an ultra marathon. So it's a marathon on top of a marathon. So I started fighting for that. I started training, working really hard to get to that point. So I attempted one in the summer of Miami Heat down to Key West, and I failed. Totally failed.